Cold winds scraped across the playground as students rushed toward the lunchroom, laughing, shouting, and running in every direction. Amid this lively chaos, a quiet man stood at the school gates, holding a metal lunchbox like it contained his entire heart. His clothes looked worn, his shoes frayed at the edges, and the tired lines beneath his eyes told the story of countless sleepless nights. His name was Armin, and he was a father who would go hungry 1,000 days if it meant his daughter could eat even one full meal. But that afternoon, he wasn't just bringing lunch for her. He was searching, hoping, to understand why 8-year-old Sarah had suddenly stopped eating at school. Why she came home with half-finished sandwiches. Why her once bright eyes now clouded over when he asked about her day. He expected a simple explanation. Maybe that she didn't like the food. Maybe that she felt shy. What he found instead would shake his soul and leave him breathless. If you believe every child deserves kindness, if you believe people should never be judged by what they lack but by what they give, then take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of second chances and humanity. Armand walked hesitantly down the hallway, feeling out of place among clean white walls and cheerful posters, urging children to be brave, kind, and courageous. The irony burned inside him. How could he ask his daughter to feel brave when she barely spoke at school anymore? As he approached the cafeteria, the smell of fresh food, rice, bread, meat, vegetables, hit him instantly, making his stomach tighten. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. Work had been slow at the garage, repairs few, and he chose to skip meals so he could use the money for his daughter's lunch. His hunger pulled at him like a reminder, but his love pushed him forward. He scanned the room, searching for Sarah. Children were scattered across tables, some chatting happily, others trading snacks, some teasing each other, and a few silently eating by themselves. Then he saw her. His little girl sat alone at the edge of a table, staring down at her empty tray. There was no food on it, not a crumb. She wasn't playing, wasn't talking, wasn't laughing. She was just there, like a forgotten note in a crowded song. Armand's heart tightened. He didn't rush to her. Instead, he stepped back, slowly moving behind a wall, watching without being seen. What he witnessed in the next few moments broke something inside him. 3 kids walked by, looking at Sarah. One pointed at her worn shoes and whispered something that made the other 2 laugh. They walked past her like she didn't exist. Another girl opened her lunch bag wide, proudly showing off colorful snacks as if displaying a trophy, and turned her back so Sarah could see but not touch. A boy passing by dropped a napkin near her and laughed, saying loud enough for her to hear, "Her dad probably can't even buy lunch." She looked down, as if trying to shrink into the small chair, but she didn't cry. She didn't react. She just stared at her tray, empty and cold, as though she had accepted that this was her place. Armin had known hunger before. He had known struggle. But he had never known what it felt like to watch his child be ashamed of it. A heavy breath escaped him, and for a moment, he froze in a pain deeper than any poverty. He had thought he was protecting her from hunger by making sacrifices every day. He never realized she was starving from something far worse, humiliation. Taking a deep breath, he walked toward her, no longer hiding. The moment she saw him, her eyes widened with surprise and a hint of panic. He could see it, the fear that he might embarrass her further, the worry that her classmates might laugh again. But he gently placed the metal lunchbox on the table and opened it carefully like a precious gift. Inside, there was a simple meal, homemade khichdi and pickle. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fancy. But it was warm, fresh, and made with love. He sat beside her, even though parents didn't normally sit in the lunchroom with kids. People looked. Some students stared. A teacher frowned, unsure if it was allowed. But Armand didn't care. He began serving the food onto the tray as if he were serving royalty. He smiled and began eating with her, as though there was nothing strange about it. His presence was a shield, and she leaned into its safety. As they ate, he noticed another boy sitting alone 2 tables away, nibbling on a tiny slice of bread. His clothes were as worn as Sarah's. His hair was messy. His movements were small, careful, and afraid. The boy watched Sarah and her father with a hunger that wasn't just about food. It was a hunger for warmth, for someone to sit with him, to notice him. Without hesitation, Armin waved to him. The boy froze, unsure if he was being mocked. But Armin gently gestured again, inviting him with his eyes. The boy slowly walked closer. Armand moved part of the food to an empty plate. The little boy hesitated, then sat next to Sarah. She looked at him, shy at first, but then she slid part of her lunch toward him too. Nothing was said aloud, but something had shifted, something small but powerful. The three of them ate together quietly. Other students watched, and teachers began whispering. Some parents might have felt embarrassed, but Armin wasn't ashamed. He had spent too long fearing judgment. Now, seeing how his daughter suffered because of that fear, he realized silence was never protection. It was surrender. After lunch ended, a teacher approached him. She had kind eyes but a tight tone as she suggested that he should schedule appointments instead of visiting unannounced. She also mentioned the school's protocol for free lunch applications in a way that felt polite but sharp. Armin nodded respectfully, but responded only with gratitude. He didn't argue, he didn't explain. Poverty didn't need an explanation. It needed dignity. When he left the school that day, he carried back an empty lunchbox, but a heavy truth weighed in his chest. Instead of going back to the garage, he sat at a bench outside the school gates, staring at nothing for a long time. He felt like he had failed as a father, not because he was poor, but because he hadn't realized how deeply children could wound other children, and how schools, even with rules and speeches about kindness, could overlook the quiet suffering of students like Sarah. He decided things would change, not through anger, not through confrontation, but through presence. Every day at lunchtime, he began showing up, not always to eat with her, but to help students without lunch. Some days he brought extra food. Other days he served water or helped clean tables just so the lonely kids had someone who noticed them. Slowly, something began to shift in the cafeteria. Kids who once laughed at Sarah now saw her father feeding others, treating every child like they mattered. The teachers began respecting him too, realizing he wasn't just a poor parent, he was a parent who showed up. Sarah's confidence returned. She started sitting with others, sometimes helping the same children who once ignored her. She learned what her father already knew, that kindness wasn't about wealth, it was about courage. Months passed, and one day, during a school assembly, the principal called Armin to the stage. He felt awkward, unsure why he was being asked to stand before hundreds of students and staff. The principal spoke about humility, compassion, and community, explaining how a single parent's presence had changed the school culture. They presented him with a certificate, but more importantly, they acknowledged something far greater, that sometimes the greatest leadership comes from those who have the least, yet choose to give the most. Armin didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Sarah ran to him in front of everyone and hugged him tightly, and in that moment he felt something stronger than embarrassment, stronger than pride. He felt peace. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe compassion has the power to transform even the quietest corners of a child's life, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that honor everyday heroes. Before the final lines of this story, please drop a comment below. What does kindness mean to you? As the applause died down, Armin looked at his daughter, her smile shining with a light he thought he had lost forever. He realized that the world didn't change through money or status. It changed through small acts of love that refused to stay silent. And as they left the stage together, hand in hand, he felt no hunger, not in his stomach, not in his spirit. He had fed something far greater, and it had come back to feed him too.